Tommy, I feel like this week has been one of those crazy weeks where you've got a dinner party every night. Come meet me for cocktails. And well, we had dinner together the other night with some folks. And one of the interesting things about the holidays is everybody's picking up around, paying for dinner, picking up the tab, and it can be difficult to square up after the fact. I think there's an easy way to do it.
Can I ask you a question before we get to the easy way to do it? Is this a weird humble brag about how popular you are?
No. I've actually I don't go out to dinner anymore, but for some reason I have 5 dinners this week to go to.
Oh, okay.
And partially because I've got a friend in town, a friend that flew in from Seattle with his girlfriend that's staying with us. So we're gonna have dinner tomorrow night.
But to answer your question, when either of us go out, we do generally settle the tab with Cash App.
Easiest way to do it. Let's face it, free trial subscriptions are killer on your finances. I mean, they can end up costing you hundreds of dollars simply because you forgot to cancel. It happens to everyone. Fight back against scammy subscriptions with Truebill. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forget about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap.
And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped save them over $100 million.
Yeah, Tommy, Truebill is great. I had so many subscriptions to things I completely forgot about, and they took care of all of them. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/JJ. Go right now, truebill.com/JJ. It can save you thousands a year. One last time, truebill.com/JJ.
All right, let's welcome in George. George, what's good, man?
Nothing much. Just enjoying the grind of the season right now. I'm excited to finally be on the podcast, guys. Thanks for having me on.
He's been asking for months.
Yeah, I've been begging. This is madness.
I don't know if it was last year or the season before, but I know at some point during warm-ups one year, you came up to me and you were like, "Yo, can I come on the pod?"
I was like, I podcast too. You think I can get on the pod? Here we are a year later.
Oh, here we are. I did want to ask you how your appearance went at the Fairway Meat Market in Iowa on September 10th.
Hey, everybody knows, athletes are out here, grinding to scrap up some cash off the court. So Fairway did a great job. They put together a great event. The meat market at the end of it kind of was just their name. I kind of got a couple laughs out of that, posting that, but it was a solid. Iowa State fan base is a pretty solid one. They've been pretty great to me. I mean, I'm sure you understand, being a Duke grad over there, it's good to have a strong fan base, especially from college.
We had Tyrese on that same week. He was in town for the football game on that Saturday. And I asked him on the pod, I said, "Are you going to George's appearance at the meat market?" By the way, how awesome is it to do an appearance at a butcher shop? Like, I was thinking about this morning. I've done bookstores, I've done grocery stores, but like a legit butcher shop. It sounds amazing. Did you get some steaks? Did you get some steaks as part of the deal?
I got some free tenderloins, some ribeye. The crazy part is you got to understand, like, the demographic is like, that's where like people in Iowa would like want to gather. You know what I mean? That's what they're into. Whereas like a different demographic could be like a meat market, but like that's the hopping spot in a college town in Ames, Iowa. But yeah, Tyrese did not make an appearance. Terrible friend. But hey.
Who gets stopped more, you or him, on the street?
Tommy, that's the most like disrespectful thing you could ever ask. Tyrese missed the NCAA tournament. You get him on here, you can ask him about it. I did 4 years and went to the tournament each time. We didn't go further than the Sweet 16, and we probably busted a lot of people's brackets by losing to UAB in the first round. But probably me.
I want to ask you a little bit about your experience in New Hampshire, but it just struck me that when you got to the NBA, your previous stops were high school in New Hampshire, which I assume this place was in the middle of nowhere because it was a private academy.
Yes.
And then Ames, Iowa, and that was your existence of what you had known, and then you get to the NBA. Was it eye opening?
Well, my next stop in the NBA was Indiana, so the rural fields just kept on rolling. I mean, being in New Hampshire, it was only like an hour from my house, and I was lucky enough that I got to, be teammates, with Nerlens Noel and Wayne Selden, all the other, guys that eventually, made it on to the NBA. But it was different, man. I mean, there wasn't much around there. You had only time to really focus on basketball. And Ames was great because I wanted to go somewhere where they, loved their sports, loved their school. And if you've ever been to the Midwest, it's like those people can have a good time with, 12 lawn chairs and a 6-pack of Bud Lights. So, I mean,
and a cornhole board.
Exactly. They love their college football. They love their college basketball, and cornhole or bags, as people want to say, is like an Olympic sport to them out there. But no, it was an adjustment getting into the NBA and being in a city where there's traffic and actually things going on, and there's more than just 2-lane highways. It was a little bit different for me.
Tommy, how much time have you spent in Iowa?
I've spent a decent amount of time. I was in Iowa right before COVID, but I've never been to Ames. I've been to Des Moines and like the places around Des Moines.
Des Moines, underrated city, plenty of good concerts there.
What's the difference in size between the Des Moines and Ames?
A lot.
It's probably like 5 to 10x. Probably that's right. Ames is probably 25,000 people roughly, not including students. And then Des Moines is, when you count the greater Des Moines area, probably 250.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah.
For sure.
I spent a decent amount of time in my childhood in Ames, Iowa, because my aunt taught at Iowa State. I think I've mentioned that on the pod before.
No.
And I actually went to basketball camp at Iowa State.
Fred Hoiberg?
No, it was we called it the Tim Floydless basketball camp because it was Tim Floyd's camp that we had signed up for. But that summer he signed to coach the Chicago Bulls.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, what's the connection with Iowa State and the Chicago Bulls? They just keep snagging
I don't know.
Our coach.
They used to. They used to, and then they stopped. And they stopped doing that, and they started to win.
Yo, Tommy, don't be saying this out there. Like, we're trying to work here. Like, yo, a funny Coach K story though was he was recruiting like a couple kids when I was in high school. A couple kids on my team, and he came over and told me, he was like, I was gonna take the Iowa State job, but I ended up taking, something happened, and I think Johnny Orr ended up taking the Iowa State job. And in my head, I'm like, why are you telling me this? Like, taking the Duke job has worked out pretty well for you.
This was back in 1980 or whatever. He was talking about
he was talking about like before. Yeah, he was going to
wow.
Iowa State job. I was like,
I didn't know that.
Duke, Iowa State. That's kind of.
What other schools were you looking at?
I mean, well, Iowa, Iowa State, Maryland, Florida, and University of Miami.
What is you were a top 100 player? What's the connection to Iowa that you were just so enamored with? To go to Iowa.
Actually, I have the craziest story of when I took an unofficial visit to Iowa. But I also knew, knowing me, Miami, George would not have been like, I'm not Duncan Robinson. I don't have my ducks in a row where I can like handle all that life and still like get it together. So I knew those two were kind of off the list. But so me and my mom, we take an unofficial visit to Iowa and Iowa State. We're like, we're going to knock both of them out. It's going to be great, whatever. And we get out there and my mom forgets her credit card. So we can't rent a car. So we literally land in Des Moines. It's 10 at night and we're at the rent-a-car place. And they're like, if you don't have a credit card, you can't rent a car, this, that, and the other. We take a taxi from Des Moines to Ames, which is like an hour-long taxi ride, right? I've never seen like driving on a highway like cornfields that I could literally thought I could see till the end of the world. So we get there. Fred Hoiberg's like, hey, like drive your car over to the practice facility. Like, you know what I mean? We'll give you guys a tour. We're not really allowed to pick you up off campus. And my mom like has us sprinting through like bean fields to get to like the practice facility. And we eventually make it. And then we're going to take another visit to the University of Iowa. So next day, wake up, still can't get a rental car, take an hour-long taxi ride back to the Des Moines airport, take a mega bus 2 hours to the Iowa City to do a tour there. Visit was whatever. My mom was like, enough is enough. I'm getting a car service. Like in my mind, I'm like, I've never had a car service, but she's like telling me like, the guy's like, what do you want? The Cadillac or the Lincoln? And my mom's like, I don't care. Like, just give me whatever. This guy picks us up. And I kid you not, he was a hoarder. Like he literally had trash in the car, like would turn and like a tuna fish can would like just slide down his dashboard. And in my head, I remember being like, you know what? Like, I don't know if Iowa's for me. And then Fred Hoiberg was like the only high major coach that came to see me during the recruiting period, like every single opportunity that he could. And I was like, hey, we can give Iowa one more chance.
I have a few comments on that story. Number one, I think the first thing that hits me is just the value of Apple Pay being on your phone and not having to have your credit card wherever you go. Apple Pay is a monster. It really is. It's a great thing. It's a game changer. Secondly, the driver and the tuna can falling over. I actually was unaware that there were turns in Iowa. I thought it was nothing but straight lines. That was what people used to tell me when I would go up there as a kid. They'd be like, yo, there's no curves in Iowa, right? It's just straight streets everywhere. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. True. And then also, going back to the beginning of the story, I just want to acknowledge your self-awareness, because I had a similar self-awareness in regards to the University of Florida, which was I did a bunch of unofficials. I wanted to commit early, so I went to UVA, I went to Duke. Duke tells me I can commit. The following weekend, I was supposed to go to the University of Florida without my parents. For their Midnight Madness with David Lee, and he had already committed. And halfway through the week, I said, I want to go to Duke, and if I go to this trip to Gainesville, I'm not coming back. Like I know I'm going to the University of Florida. So I was like, fuck it, I'll just commit now. Duke is my dream school. That's a great that is a great story. Your freshman year, you were freshman of the year in the Big 12. You hurt your foot at the end of the year, and then you lost a bunch of weight. Yeah. This has been a big topic of discussion, not just with Zion, but with a bunch of players. I'm curious for you personally, that sort of decision, because again, you're an 18-year-old kid, you're a top 100 recruit in high school, you get freshman of the year, but to sort of have that awareness, to acknowledge to yourself, well, I got to get in better shape if I want to be healthy and perform at a high level. Was that a hard thing to do?
Yeah, because it's a lifestyle change. Like when you go from thinking that eating like chicken fingers and French fries after games is like the norm, because that's, kind of what that's kind of what I did my whole life. And you have to look at and enjoy a salad. It was tough for me, but it also made me realize like you can do things with, your life in moderation. You know what I mean? You don't need 5 cookies, George. You can have one. You know what I mean? And it, the biggest thing for me was Fred Hoiberg basically, sat me down that summer and was like, hey, like you're good, but if you want to be even better, like this is like the next step for you. Like, it's not like jump hooks or jump shots. It's like, you need to hone in on like what you're eating and what you're doing, conditioning and different things like that. And it was tough because you bring up the Zion thing, but like you get to some points where like, I don't want to say you feel like helpless, where you're just like, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to be. But like, it actually is, breaking habits are like really, it's tough. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just transitioning from like, I mean, I remember listening to you were saying like you were eating meatball sandwiches earlier, like on your career, like before games. And it's like, to snap out of that is like something that's not easy. So when you eventually break out of it, like it's a thing, it's in the rearview mirror now. But when I think about it, I was like, dang, I was really eating like chicken wings, like before games and like not caring. It's an adjustment, but I think once you get into a groove, it becomes real easy. And once it becomes a part of your routine, it's a simple fix.
Yeah. So I had a very similar conversation after my sophomore year with Coach K and Coach Collins. They probably weren't as nice as Fred was, but it required a lifestyle change. And to the point about habits, this is the really interesting thing I've found with habits is to break bad habits requires going down into the valley and confronting the beast. That's what our strength coach at Duke used to talk about. Those are hard days. And to break a habit requires going down into the valley, confronting the beast, and then doing that again the next day and the next day and the next day. And so that initial period of change is really fucking hard. But once the good habits become your habit, it's much easier to maintain that because that becomes sort of the habit and the routine. But that initial period, man, it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. I feel like you don't ever think like you're gonna beat it. You're like, can I really do this? And I think the turning point is when like you have that day where you're like, nah, like I'm doing this. Like but yeah, confronting the beast every day and being self-aware, I think is the biggest thing, and not, letting your ego get in the way of being like, no, I look good the way I am. Like I don't need to lose this extra 10 pounds. Like I got here looking like this. I mean, those are the two biggest things for me.
You did this George, you just did this summer too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me is every off season when George isn't active, he can tend to throw on some husky pounds, So, that 6-week grind before they want you to show up, especially for me in a new city, it requires George to dial in on his diet, which it seems to get harder every year. So hopefully I can lock in this summer again.
It was funny, JJ, because the last time I saw him, we were at Carbone in New York.
And he had a salad. And he only had a salad.
No, he was eating everything. And he's going on and on about how he's losing weight and all this shit. And he's just like shoving breadsticks in his face.
Rigatoni.
Like, what is happening?
The vodka rigatoni at Carbone. You got to have it.
Tommy's like, didn't you say you were on a diet? I was like, Tommy, shut up.
Don't ask questions.
I was going to acknowledge, and I'm glad Tommy did for me, but I was going to acknowledge you look considerably slimmer this season than in previous seasons. Yeah. You look like you're in really good shape. I want to move on to a different topic. Before I do, I have to ask you, at Iowa State, how much beer pong were you playing? You seem like a big beer pong guy.
When I was growing up, you played beer pong and you poured like beer in the cup. And then when I got to Iowa State, they just had water in the cup because I was confused onto why that happened. They were like, you sicko, like you're just going to let the ball hit the ground and drink the beer coming out of it. But those people out in Iowa are professional, like beer drinkers. Like it's crazy because you'd have a class of like 300 kids and you'd recognize like one and be like, hey, like we played beer pong this weekend. And they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, no, like we had like an in-depth conversation. Like I thought I was vulnerable. I was telling you about my family. He's like, dude, I don't even remember seeing you this weekend. I was like, but you seemed functional when I was talking to you about like my cousin. And they were like, nah.
That's great.
Who do you guys think you two are probably up there with best beer pong players in the NBA in the last, I'd say, 10 to 15 years based off of your shooting ability and also your drinking ability. Who else is on that list?
You go first. I'm gonna have to think about this one.
I'm just trying to think about guys that I would like to play beer pong with. That I think, because so much of beer pong is not just about having touch, but just being able to sort of dial in while you're consuming.
Yes,
and that's a skill.
You think Clay?
Oh, he's got to be up there.
I would say J.R. Smith. I'd want to play beer pong with Jimmy Butler. I think he'd be good.
Oh, Joe Ingles, I'd take him for
Joe
sure.
Ingles for sure.
Like,
sure.
I've seen him like take down and still be like locked in.
Yo, I actually said this the other day on SVP. Scott was asking me about Steph, and I brought up this notion of Steph sort of existing on this higher plane of consciousness.
Yeah.
And he really does. Like, he's tapped into something that he's in this flow, this state of flow at all times, and we're seeing, like, he's human. He just had 3 not off shooting nights or whatever, but like for the most part, 90% of the time he's in this state of flow. And I use the analogy, when you like Steph is when you're on fire, it feels like you have that perfect buzz in beer pong, and it's the last cup, and you just have no doubt that you're going to make it. You just toss it, and it just hits the back of the cup and goes in. And that's, to me, like, that's the state of flow that Steph is in at all time. It's that perfect buzz. It's just complete self-awareness, complete freedom, complete lack of sort of awareness of consequences. It's just like, I'm just gonna knock it in.
It's him in the cup. It's just him in the cup. Nothing else matters.
Yes. George, you're having a career year this year, and we'll get into a little bit about your decision to go to Philly and your free agency and stuff. But for someone who was the 50th pick and was up and down in the G League your first couple years, and obviously you carved out a role for yourself in Utah, but in those early years in the NBA, was it a matter of survival, or did you always sort of envision that you could have a role like this in the league?
Yeah, no, like you first said, it was a matter of survival. I mean, I was just taking it one day at a time. Like, how can I get myself on the court? How can I stick around? How can I continue to collect a paycheck? When I first got in the league, I was the 50th pick, and I feel like all you hear about is the statistics from people like, be thankful that, you have a contract, because, in 4 years, there's going to be none of the second round picks in your draft, in the NBA. And I mean, we talked about routine earlier, and I think the biggest thing for me was just finding a way that could get me on the court. And then once I figured out what skill I could do that at, the rest was gravy. Like, Alex Caruso had the best saying, like, this offseason. He was like, dudes are coming in, thinking they're interviewing for the CEO job, but it's like they want to hire you as the janitor. It's like, you don't need, I've said it before, you don't need 3 or 4, outfits in your bag. Let me get in my bag. No, you just need one in your bag. And hopefully the ball trickles to you because they're double teaming someone else, and you can knock down open shots and not let your guy score. And don't foul 3-point shooters, JJ. That's realistically how it should go.
I think you're referencing the last time I played against you, which I had just an unbelievable 4-point play. It's on the scouting report that I jump forward when I shoot.
I must admit, they must have not put that one in red highlighter.
So walk us through how you ended up in Philly.
So Utah, I think, quickly ends up signing Rudy Gay, right? I think that happened like day one. And then there are some other teams in the mix. And this is my first time being in free agency where like someone actually like wanted me, and they weren't just like, hey, we'll give you like a 2-year like non-guarantee. It was more like, I actually had some options. And so free agency, like things like happen like so fast. Like people were telling me it's like musical chairs. You don't want to get caught not having a chair. So there are a couple of teams where I'm like, do I really fit there? Like this, that, and the other. 2 hours later, I see someone else taking the same deal that like I was offered. So I'm like, all right, so it's like day 2. My agent calls me and it was like, hey, Doc Rivers, wants to get on the phone with you. I think this would be a good fit. And, basically Doc is, he's really good at, being persuasive. That's one thing that's for sure. I mean, he knows how to lock you in and tell you, what he likes about you. And I think that's what he did with me and saying that they had a need for a backup 4. And then, once that had kind of happened, you get the money stuff figured out. I was kind of sold on it just for the simple fact that my role in Utah was great. I love being able to space the floor, but being in Philly has allowed me, to grow and to continue to tap into other avenues of my game that, sometimes I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm back out in college spinning 3 times in the lane, pump faking and, shooting a jump hook. Whereas like, if I did that in Utah, Quinn Snyder would be like, how about you just kick the ball out to one of our 40% 3-point shooters? How about that? So that's kind of how I ended up in Philly. Being close to the East Coast finally was a big decision for me. And I was happy that I got that opportunity in Philly, and what better not to play for a sports town like Philadelphia.
You probably couldn't have predicted when you signed the need for you.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Given the Ben Simmons situation, Joel getting sick, you guys having to play a string of games underhanded. But I the thing that's been most impressive to me about your team this year is the depth and the bench unit. And the growth of Shake, the growth of Furkan, your own growth. Tyrese obviously is playing as a starter now. But it just seems like there's a lot of, despite the record, despite the Ben drama, and despite Joel being out, there's a lot of positive things happening on your team right now.
Yeah, guys have really been able to step in and develop into their own, which is, a credit to them, because I've seen it go the complete opposite way for some guys where, you get the opportunity and it's like 4 for 16 and you know what I mean? And you're like, we can't get this guy to dribble with his left hand, so it's actually great to see that, like guys like Shake, Furkan, Tyrese, me, even Matisse, like offensively, being more aggressive. I think, last year, what happened to them in the playoffs definitely left a sour taste in their mouth, and guys definitely came back prepared and were ready to make stuff happen this year. And it was good to see, because you can't really predict the COVID injury stuff. But God, we were. I remember looking in the locker room, being like, "So, who's playing today?" It was crazy. I mean, someone was out for contact tracing, someone was out with COVID, someone, ran too hard in layup lines and their hamstring is sore. You're like, what's happening here? And then we strung together some wins on the road, and obviously we took our lumps, playing some good teams, but I think we came out better on the other end. That's for sure.
Has the Ben situation been a sort of a constant sort of distraction and tension? Obviously, at the beginning of the year, when it was on the news every day and talked about every day, and when he came to practice for those couple of days, I acknowledge that must have been a distraction. But just the underlying sort of day-to-day tension and acknowledgement of it, does that exist to a degree that it's a distraction?
Yo, the crazy part of it is so I've never played alongside him, so I don't know what it's like to have him in practice, like actually in practice. So like obviously those 3 days, like I remember being like, just like, it was hard for me to focus in practice, because I was like, all right, like what's about to happen here? And then eventually, like now it's obviously he addressed the team, and mentally he wasn't ready to play, or still isn't ready to play. But now it's kind of like we're focused on, all right, who's playing tonight? How are we gonna get through tonight? And Doc's made a great point of just being like, hey, we're gonna take it one battle at a time, one day at a time. This is who we have for today. This is how we're gonna make, whether it's for practice, shoot around, and I say practice loosely. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Once you get in season with Doc, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
Life is an amazing place to be. And who's ever, on the active roster to play that night, that's kind of how we're going about it this season. That's kind of the first time I've done that in my career. But I mean, it's worked out for us. Like you said, guys have stepped up, and it's been solid. But as for the distraction part, for me, it's not a distraction because I don't know what it was like to play alongside. So without is like, I've never had experience too. So
there's no reference point. There's no reference point to that.
Last night was probably a good example of this, but before you got here, did you have a sense of like how dominant Joe can be when he really turns it on?
Yo, no. I mean, it's like, it's the craziest thing ever. And like the best part is like, he does it like with like no facial like emotion until like the game's over. Like I'll tell you a story. So yesterday we're lifting, right? We're lifting in the weight room, and Joe has his phone out, while he's doing his lift. Like he's lifting, looking at his phone, and I'm like, what is he doing? And all of a sudden he starts like, yes, and I'm like, yo, what are you doing? He's like, Formula One racing. I'm like, what? Like this is the MVP candidate, like is lifting while watching like Formula One racing. I'm like, who is this guy? But that's just who he is. Like he has his quirks, he has his things that he likes. But at the end of the day, like I've never seen someone be able to be that big and move that good and have that soft a touch, fall away, like footwork. It's impressive how dominant he can be on a night in, night out basis.
I think what's most impressive about him and his growth as a player, and I played with him for 2 years, and he was, at the beginning of who he is right now, which is an MVP candidate as soon as he steps on the floor. But, obviously it's the nimbleness and the touch and the skill, but the variance in his game. I was watching the game last night, and he's hitting those step back jumpers. He's so good now at reading when the double team is coming. And the announcers kept saying, oh, he's settled, and then the ball goes in. And at some point after the third time, the other announcer was, I don't think he's settling. I think he's trying to shoot that shot. But he's averaging over 10 free throws a game. So he's mixing up the physicality. He's shooting 40% from three at, I think, 3.5 attempts a game. It's just super impressive to watch the variance in his game. He can do so many things at such a high level. I'm not comparing him to Jokic by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a passing element to what he's doing now. He's becoming a complete player. He's a top 5 player. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that goes along with this. Like you have big men that can have the ability to pass out of a double team. Because I mean, I hate saying this, but a lot of big men aren't the smartest. Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is, right? Like
the oxygen, there's less oxygen up there. It just affects their brain.
Exactly, yeah. It's hard to function up at that level. But the fact that he can think the game and understand that a double team's coming and not make the same compounding mistakes. Like he's a smart-witted, kid. And the fact that you said like he has variance, like he's shooting threes, like when you have a big that can literally back you down and then literally dunk on you, but also finesse you with, jumpers. I mean, you're right. Top 5. I mean, he just demands a double team every time down, but can still score through a double team. It's impressive.
He's smarter now than he was 4 or 5 years ago about being a willing passer out of those double teams too.
Yeah.
It's like there was times he would get himself in trouble with turnovers because he wasn't as willing. Now he sees the double team, he's getting out of it. And some of that, of course, is the personnel. Daryl, I think, has done a great job the last 2 years of adding guys like you. Generally speaking, he's on the court with 4 shooters, and that makes life a lot easier for him.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like I've said it before. I mean, coming here and you just have someone that attracts, 2 people. I mean, that's great. I mean, I love that because I like shooting open threes. It makes me look a lot better than having to shoot contested ones. That's for sure.
What's been your Philly fan experience like?
It was, when you hear the stories, you like, I was a little anxious to start the season because there was a preseason game where I literally had a wide open 3, but I slipped in my hand and I pump faked it. And I turned the ball over and I was running down the court and some guy standing up in an AI jersey was like, yo, shoot the fucking ball. We didn't bring you here to pass the fucking ball. And I was like, what? It it was like, because I came from Utah, where like I know people have talked about like fan experience in Utah, but in Utah it'd be like, oh, like it's all right, like next time down. Like here it was like, nah, be better. Like, and I was like, dang, like, but it's been great. You know, I was lucky I got off to a hot start, so I didn't have to deal with any of like the ball busting fans or like, you suck, like why'd we bring you here? So I'm extremely thankful for that.
Just wait till you hit that 2-week stretch where you go 5 for 30. Just wait, buddy. What have you done for me lately? That's the MO. It's the modus operandi for Philly fans.
JJ, when was the first time you got booed by them?
Oh, not till towards the end of my second year. Yeah, it was like March of my second year there. Looking back to, I was talking with Duncan earlier this week about just shooting in general and stuff, obviously privately. But one of the things I said to him, it's like this Roy McIlroy quote where when you're not playing well, it feels like you're so far away. And then when you're playing well, you realize like, oh, I never really was that far away. And so I look back on that month in March, and it felt like I couldn't make a shot. But then I look back at like the box scores. I'm like, oh, okay. So I had 2 off shooting nights, and then I went for 30 against the Magic. And then the next game I had like a 5 for 11 night. And then the next game I had a bad night. And then the next game I was really good. And you're like, no, that's just the NBA. But in the moment when you're like, I had 3 of the worst shooting games of my career in that month, and they're booing me, it feels heavy. It feels very heavy. Look, everyone's always talking about the benefits of CBD, but how do you know where you're getting it from is legit? Well, Papa and Barkley creates award-winning CBD solutions for pain, stress, sleep, and everyday wellness. And unlike less effective CBD brands, they have an unmatched, clean, chemical-free, whole plant process with proven results. Papa and Barkley understands wanting the absolute best for the people we care about most. I know I would want the best for my loved ones, and Papa & Barkley simply delivers a great product.
Papa & Barkley has a full line of topical balms, oils, tinctures, and capsules, all made with 100% natural clean ingredients and whole plant, full spectrum CBD.
Today, they're the #1 cannabis wellness company in California, and with their new CBD Relief line, they can ship nationwide. Tommy, I've tried the product. It's really helped with some of my heel pain. It's also helped me get a better night's sleep. Papa & Barkley is on a mission to improve lives through CBD in its purest, cleanest form possible. Go to papaandbarkleycbd.com/JJ for 20% off your first purchase. That's 20% off for new customers at PAPA and BARKLEYCBD.com/JJ. papaandbarkleycbd.com/JJ. We spend 1/3 of our lives in bed, so why wouldn't you get the best sheets possible to give you the perfect night's sleep? Well, pure organic cotton sheets from Boll & Branch make a truly special gift this holiday season because they make the highest quality sheets by doing things the right way, not the easy way. Their smoothness, softness, and weight are unmatched. I'm telling you, I've slept in these and they are so comfortable, and the styles are great too.
Their sheets are crafted to the highest standards and have incredible attention to detail, and they have the perfect balance of weight and breathability to pamper warm or cool sleepers through any season. There are no middlemen between you and Boll & Branch, so you get luxury quality for the fairest price, which certainly helps around the holidays.
So treat yourself and your loved ones to the new standard in bedding from Boll & Branch. Their gifts come wrapped and ready in their special holiday packaging. Order by December 19th for guaranteed delivery by Christmas. Their best deals of the year are going on now from December 16th to December 23rd with promo code OLDMAN at bollandbranch.com. That's BOLL and branch.com. Promo code OLDMAN. Exclusions may apply. Sometimes you just don't want your computer searches to be seen. Whether it's banking, personal info, or just something you don't want out there, some things are better left private. I know most of you are probably thinking, why don't you just use incognito mode? Let me tell you something. Incognito mode does not hide your activity. It doesn't matter what mode you use or how many times you clear your browsing history. Your internet service provider can still see every single website you've ever visited. That's why, even when I'm at home, I never go online without using ExpressVPN. It doesn't matter who your internet service provider is. ISPs in the US can legally sell your information to ad companies. ExpressVPN is an app that reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit. ExpressVPN also keeps all of your information secure by encrypting 100% of your data with the most powerful encryption available. Most of the time, I don't even realize I have ExpressVPN on. It runs seamlessly in the background and is so easy to use. All you have to do is tap one button and you're protected. ExpressVPN is available on all your devices, phones, computers, even your smart TV. So there's no excuse for you not to be using it. Protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by Business Insider. Visit my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/JJ, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/JJ. expressvpn.com/JJ to learn more. George, I know we got to let you get to film. I just had one last question for you. Do you consider yourself to be athletic?
It depends on it depends on the definition. Like what? Like athletic compared to the everyday American? Absolutely.
Athletic compared to like a high jumping NBA player?
No.
What the fuck is going through your mind trying to jump with John Collins then?
You know what's funny about that is, so me and him had kind of gotten into it like during in the middle of the game, and he said something, and I'm like, yeah, like shut up, and he was like, keep talking like that, I'm gonna dunk on you, and I was like, you will never. I was like, you will never, and then sure enough, I was caught being the low man. I thought I could swing my arm, maybe distract him. Swung his arm with the ball through the net. You're right. I need to do a better job of knowing myself and being self-aware. And sometimes, what is it where you jump up and like kind of like get out?
It's a business decision. Yeah, you can elect for. Look, clearly, I rewatched the play like 3 times this morning.
We're gonna clip it out. This is gonna be the thing that goes out ahead of time.
One, because it was an incredible dunk, but also I was trying to figure out just situationally where you were supposed to be.
Ooh.
And what do we say about the low man? The low man's got to be there early. You got to be there early.
I didn't know John Collins' launch pad was at the logo. No, and the crazy part is, like, I don't know if everybody knows Dan Burke in the NBA. He's been around for a long time, defensive guru. And he showed it on film the next day before we played Charlotte. And I was like, hey, DB, like, I watched ESPN like 4 times last night. I think I saw enough of my clips. Like, do we have to put that one on there? I just wanted you to know you need to be over a little earlier. Like,
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. That's one as a coach, you just got to kind of let slide. You got to let slide, I'm sure when you got on Instagram or Twitter that night, it was like, oh, can't avoid it. Can't avoid it.
Maybe I'm just going to put my phone down for the night.
George, before you go, we need one Duncan story that has not been told.
Man, so we lived together this summer, and so we were up in the spot that we're at, and Duncan's like walking around the house like flustered, like, and usually he's like happy-go-lucky, but free agency was kind of like, a big thing for him, and he was walking around, and I'm like, dude, like what's the matter? Like, what's going on? He's like, I can't talk about it right now. I think I'm going to turn down a lot of money, and like I don't know how I feel about it. This, that, and the other, and he basically was just walking like high class problems, right? Duncan's about to get paid this summer, and he's nervous about. I'm not going to say the specific numbers, just you know what I mean. But he was like, I turned down this. Like how like I don't know how to feel about that. That's more money than I've ever thought about in my life. And I'm like, Duncan, it was just seeing him panic. Mm-hmm. And usually, like, he's a kid that's like has it all together. Seeing him panic was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And like, here's me, he's throwing out numbers that I don't know if I'll even get in my career, but he's turning down in one contract. I was like, Hey, Duncan, we should be happy about this.
Yeah, right. He's always in his feelings. He's always in his feelings.
But no, he's a great dude, and I mean, I think the funniest thing that I've ever seen him do was after he got paid. We all went to the Hamptons, and I don't know if anybody who listens has ever been to the Surf Lodge, but I would say it gets pretty expensive with chicken fingers and fries and bottles and whatever celebrities you get to be next to. And he might kill me for saying this, but we're there, and obviously we're having like a heck of a time, right? Like we're ordering whatever we want, and the lady comes out with the check, and I think Duncan has American Express now, but he didn't back then. So he gives her his little Portsmouth Credit Union bank card, and she comes back and she's like, Mr. Robinson, your card has been declined. And immediately I was like, what? And he has a good friend of his that was carrying an American Express that picked up the tab, and Duncan fully refunded him. But I think that was I was like, Duncan, get an American Express like tomorrow. Like, you are too much of a big deal to not have one of those. But hopefully he doesn't kill me for telling the story, but it's definitely one that was hilarious.
That's a great story. I'm not trying to one up. I just thought of this though, but my second year in Philly, I set up this dinner when we went to China. A friend of mine was the maitre d' at a Joel Robuchon restaurant in Shanghai. And so I hosted, I don't know, probably 10 or 11 guys showed up. Everybody except I think me had their girlfriend or wife with them. So like 20 some people. And like, I kind of went nuts with the wine. And I actually didn't bring my wallet on that trip. I only had my passport. So I was in China for a week with just per diem and my passport. And so I went over to Amir Johnson at the end of the meal, and I was like, Amir, I got to talk to you about something. Because he, at the time, was the only other guy there that really had a bunch of contracts. And I was like, yo, I need your Amex, bro. You got to pay for this. I'll send you a check when we get back to the States. I felt bad. He came through for me.
That's a good friend.
Yeah, great teammate. All right, George, we appreciate it, man. Best of luck.
Appreciate it.
Talk soon.
Later, bro.